What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we have finally seen the official reveal of Sinister Motives, the Spider-Man big box expansion for Marvel Champions. And this is a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of stuff that's gone and been revealed for this particular set over the past day. The lovely folks over at Fantasy Flight Games have given me a challenge. I intend taking up the challenge, so we're going to have to go with a bit of a clip here to get through all the information. But quite frankly, challenge accepted. What we have here is a Spider-Man themed box with 2 heroes and 5 scenarios that could be played on their own or as a campaign. So it's a big box expansion. So first hero then, we've got Ghost Spider. This is Gwen Stacy. Spider-Gwen. It's Spider-Gwen, alright? And what we've got here is in alter ego mode, you've got recovery of 3, and as an action you can choose to either shuffle Ticket to the Multiverse from your discard pile into your deck, or ready George Stacy. That's her dad, I'm sure we'll get there in a moment. With a standard hand size of 6 and hit points of 10, which are low but okay. Ghost Spider, we've got thwart of 1, attack of 2, defense of 3. Defense of 3 is high. Same hit points of 10, hand size of 5. And we got a response whereby after you resolve an interrupt or responsibility on an event, ready Ghost Spider. Now it's limit 1 per phase, but basically you can be ready in Ghost Spider continually, and it's once per phase, not per turn. So ready on the villain turn, so that you can then block. Yeah. That sounds pretty good to me, ladies and gentlemen. That sounds pretty good to me. Now, I did tell you we had these other 2 cards here, Ticket to the Multiverse and George Stacy. Now, Ticket to the Multiverse is a free cost upgrade, and you remove it from the game, discard your hand, shuffle your discard pile into your deck, draw up to your hand size, and ready each Ghost Spider card you control. So it's a one-shot deal, you're removing it from the game, but it's clearly going to let you have an absolutely monster combo turn. The other thing Gwen allowed you to do is ready George Stacy. George Stacy is a 1-cost support, said Daddy. And events attached to George Stacy may be played as if they were in your hand, and there's an action that lets you exhaust George Stacy and attach an event from your hand face down here. But of course you can ready him using Gwen Stacy, make a load of events there, and then basically give yourself access to a huge hand, build up some massive combos. That sounds good. And combos is clearly where we're going here, right? So we've got Ghost Kick, a 2-cost event. After Ghost Spider uses a basic power, deal 6 damage to an enemy. Yowza. Phantom Flip is a 2-cost event, whereby after Ghost Spider uses a basic power, remove 5 threat from a scheme. Pirouette and Punch. When a card is revealed from the encounter deck, you deal damage to the villain equal to 1 more than the number of boost icons. And you cancel that card's when revealed effects, which sounds pretty good. We've got Web Bracelet, a 2-cost upgrade. After you resolve an interrupt or responsibility on an event, you exhaust Web Bracelet, but draw a card. Good for draw. That sounds pretty gosh darn good. And then we've got, things like Across the Spider-Verse, a 2-cost event, whereby you exhaust a Web Warrior card. Yes, Spider-Gwen is a Web Warrior. And then you search your discard pile for a Web Warrior ally and put it into play, choosing a player, and that player may spend 3 resources of any type to repeat this ability. And now I'm sure you probably want to see some Web Warriors. Now, Gwen Stacy comes out as a protection hero, and I am delighted because they're bringing Silk into the game. Silk is one of those really obscure characters that your average fan is not really going to know, and is not going to get a hero pack anytime soon, or is she? But I love that she's coming in here. Also among the best artwork we've seen in the game so far. 2-cost, 2 health ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, taking a consequential damage each. Low stats, nice and cheap, nothing impressive here. But after you play Silk from your hand, if you control another Web Warrior card, you search the encounter deck for a Treachery card and discard it. Yeah. Taking a Treachery card you really don't want to see out of the encounter deck. And sure, it makes the encounter deck a bit smaller, gets you closer to getting an acceleration token, but still, that's pretty gosh darn cool. We've also got Spider UK here. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 cost, 5 health. Not loving the 2 consequential damage on the attack. Am loving the free cost 5 health. But again, the stats in terms of attack and thwart are low. But when Spider UK defends against an attack, deal damage to the attacking enemy equal to the number of Web Warrior cards that you control. So you can clearly build up an army of Web Warriors here to really help you. We've then got Jump Flip, a 1-cost event. When you would take any amount of damage, prevent 2 of it. And if you paid using an energy resource, remove 2 threat from the main scheme. Sounds fun. And What Doesn't Kill Me, a 2-cost event that must be paid with a physical resource. I think that's new. I don't remember seeing that before. And then there's a hero action whereby you heal 2 damage from your hero and ready your hero. I cannot be the only one that thinks that sounds kind of cool. Moving over into Spider-Man, just to be perfectly clear, this is Spider-Man Miles Morales, not Spider-Man Peter Parker. So yes, you absolutely can play them in the same game with no issues. They are different people. Now, Miles Morales has a recovery of 4, which is high. Hand size of 6, which is standard. 9 hit points is as low as we see. This is not great. Of course, he's a child. And there's a response. After you change to this form, shuffle a Spider-Man card from your discard pile into your deck. Basically lets you keep reusing those Spider-Man cards you like, bearing in mind the later in your game it goes, the smaller your hero deck is going to be, and the easier you're going to find it to reuse these cards. In hero mode, you got a standard 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 defense, hand size of 5 with those same hit points of 9. But you've got 2 special abilities. Venom Blast deals 2 damage to an enemy and stuns them, and Spider Camouflage gives Spider-Man a tough status card and confuses an enemy. Now, these are special abilities, so they can only be operated by playing particular cards. You cannot just use them normally. So, let's see some examples. Swing In is a 2-cost event, and you remove 4 threat from a scheme. If you paid using a science resource, resolve the Spider Camouflage ability. Oh, look at that. Web Shot is a 2-cost event that deals 4 damage to an enemy, but if you paid using an energy resource, resolve Spider-Man's Venom Blast ability. Would you look at that? Arachnobatics, wonderful card name, 1-cost event, deal 2 damage to an enemy. If that enemy has a stun status, deal 3 additional damage. If it has a confused status, deal 3 additional damage. If they've got both, that is 8 damage for 1 cost, which is nuts. Power Within is a 1-cost upgrade. After your hero uses a basic power, discard Power Within to resolve that Venom Blast ability. So basically, these are very cheap cards. They're all 1 and 2 costs so far, and they let you use these special abilities. And these special abilities are not once per turn. They don't exhaust Spider-Man. You just need to be able to play cards to actually activate them. Defense Mechanism is a 1-cost upgrade. After your hero uses a basic power, attack, thwart, defend, discard Defense Mechanism and resolve Spider Camouflage. So basically, you are going to be constantly dealing extra damage, which is nice, and stunning, which is nice, and constantly having tough plus confusion. If you can keep resolving these special abilities, and these are cheap cards, and remember that Miles Morales will let you keep shuffling them back in, you're going to be continually stunning and confusing the villain, while dealing extra damage and having toughs yourself. If you can chain these abilities, and it certainly looks like cheap costs, shuffle them back in, you absolutely can. I love Miles Morales generally, he's one of my favourite Marvel heroes. This looks like a proper top-tier character. Don't get me wrong, I like Spider-Gwen, and Spider-Gwen looks cool, but goodness me, this looks amazing. We've then got Double Life, which is a 1-cost event. Maximum 1 per round. You change your form, and if you paid using a physical resource, ready your identity. Seems kind of cool. Now, Miles comes out of the box as a Justice character, and we've got Monica Chang here. 1 thwart, 1 attack, taking a consequential damage. 3 cost, 2 health. Do not like when health is lower than cost. But after Monica Chang enters play, you search your deck, hand, and discard pile for a copy of the Surveillance Team support, put it into play, and place 1 Snoop counter on each Surveillance Team you control. So yeah, that's going to be kind of worth it. Agent 13 is a basic ally. 4 cost, 4 health, 2 thwart, 1 attack, taking 1 damage each. But after Agent 13 attacks or thwarts, choose a shield support and ready it, which is a bit nuts. Like Field Agent, it uses 3 backup counters as a 1 cost support, and when a shield ally would take any amount of consequential damage, you exhaust Field Agent, remove 1 backup counter, prevent 1 damage. Or Surveillance Team. Yes, it's that one from earlier. Surveillance Team uses 3 Snoop counters, and it's a 2 cost card, and you exhaust it and remove a Snoop counter to remove a threat from a scheme. There are combos going on. Homeland Intervention is a 0 cost event. You exhaust up to 3 shield cards you control, choose a scheme, and remove 2 threats from that scheme for each card exhausted in this way. Nice. And then finally, Global Logistics is a 0 cost event. You exhaust 1 shield card you control, look at the top 4 cards of a player deck or the encounter deck, and discard any number of them, putting the others on the top or bottom of the deck in any order. Basically lets you stack the deck, which is clearly a good thing. So those are our 2 heroes. What have we got in terms of villains? Well, we start off here with Sandman. Now, stage 1, you've got 1 scheme, 2 attack, 16 hit points. But when Sandman attacks you, that attack deals indirect damage, i.e. you can't block it like you usually would, which is sad. If your identity takes any amount of damage from that attack, you resolve Surging Sands on City Streets. City Streets is an environment, and you place 1 sand counter here when you activate the skill like you do on Sandman, and discard cards on the top of the encounter deck equal to the number of sand counters, which means that as sand counters build up, the villain deck is going to be milling itself very quickly, and remember, when it runs out you have an acceleration token, which means scheme builds up, which is very bad. There is, however, a hero action whereby you can exhaust a character and remove sand counters from there equal to the character's attack, which you're going to need to do so it doesn't get out of hand. And that's basically Sandman. Not a terrifying villain generally, but City Streets is going to build up super quickly, it's going to mill itself, build up acceleration tokens, and it's going to get a bit silly. We've also seen Sandform, an attachment that goes on Sandman. When you would deal any amount of damage to Sandman, you discard Sandform instead and resolve the Surging Sands ability. And we've seen Sand Clone, a 1 scheme 3 health minion with attack equal to the number of sand counters on City Streets. And when you defeat it, you resolve the Surging Sands ability. So it's not just self-milling getting towards acceleration tokens, which is going to make City Streets terrifying. It is everything else as well. After that, we move on to Venom. 1 scheme, 2 attack, 17 hit points with toughness. And there is a forced response. After you attack and damage Venom with a card you control, place a face-down boost card on your identity, which sounds good. You attack Venom, you get a boost card. That is going to build up your attack in the future, so you can keep attacking and doing more and more damage. Unfortunately, the main scheme Leave Us Alone has a forced interrupt. When Venom activates against you, move each face-down boost card from your identity to Venom. Yeah. So basically, Venom is going to either do huge damage or scheme for a huge amount. It's a 10 threat to win, 2 threat on it initially, 1 threat per turn per player. And oh my goodness, that is going to be harsh. So if you keep attacking Venom, your attacks can keep stacking, but then Venom takes your boost counters and that's bad. But never fear, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Bell Tower, because that's how you defeat Venom, right? It's through Bell Tower. If there are at least 3 chime counters per player, you flip it. And there's an interrupt when any amount of damage would be dealt to Venom by an attack. You may instead place that many chime counters. And remember, if you're not dealing damage to Venom, you're not building up boost icons that Venom can then steal, which is a bonus. Now, when you flip, you increase all damage Venom takes by 1. But when you run out of chime counters, you flip back to the other side. And there's a forced interrupt. When Venom's attack would deal any amount of damage, you remove that many chime counters instead. For each chime counter removed, prevent 1 damage. So essentially, if you can get and keep chime counters on Bell Tower, you can have a couple of monster turns destroying Venom, but then they will all run away, and then when you attack Venom generally, you build up boost counters, which Venom can steal. There is also a side scheme, guard the Bell Tower, because obviously the Bell Tower kind of works nicely for you. You treat the Bell Tower's printed text box as if it were blank, and when revealed you remove each chime counter from the Bell Tower and flip it to the quiet side. So if you've spent all that time building up chime counters, this can undo all of your hard work. So 2 villains and 2 pretty unique mechanics so far. From there you move on to Mysterio. 2 scheme, 1 attack, 15 hit points. But there is a forced response. After you resolve a boost card during Mysterio's activation, place that card in your discard pile if it has the illusion trait. Basically, a bunch of the encounter cards are going to end up in your discard pile and therefore your deck. Now, the main scheme Maze of Mirrors, 8 to complete, starts with 2 threat per player and gains 1 per turn. There is a forced interrupt. When you would draw or discard an encounter card from your deck, deal it to yourself as a face-down encounter card and draw a card. Yep. See, that's the thing. You get all these encounter cards by Mysterio's skill going into your discard pile and therefore your deck. And then, when you would draw or discard them, they get dealt to you. Now, you get to draw a card, and that's lovely. It's a nice little draw engine. But there's a potential here for Mysterio to deal you 4, 5, 6, however many encounter cards in one turn. This can lead to some absolutely brutal turns. You are going to have to try and find a way to manage this. Now, we have seen a couple of other cards coming in here as well. So we've got Humongous Hallucination. It is an attachment that gives you a hero action, spend 1 resource of any type, and shuffle the top 2 cards of the encounter deck into your deck to discard this card. Yeah, that's right, more encounter cards going into your deck, which is a hook of Mysterio as we've seen, but if you don't do that, Mysterio gets +3 attack, so you kind of need to do that, but Mysterio kind of wants you to do that. We've also seen Shifting Apparition, 1 scheme, 1 attack, 1 health minion. With guard, you've got to take it out before you go after the minion. And when defeated, if this minion was defeated with excess damage, the defeating player shuffles the top card of the encounter deck into their deck. I.e., you've got to try and do exactly 1 damage. If you don't, you're taking an encounter card into your deck, which as we've seen is exactly what Mysterio wants. And then we've seen Fearmonger. It's got Surge, and when revealed you discard your hand and draw up to your hand size, which sounds not terrible. Obviously, if your hero deck runs out, you take an encounter card, but generally extra draw can be good. But remember, every time you would draw an encounter card, you deal it as a face-down encounter card. You get a replacement, but essentially it's making you draw cards. After putting encounter cards in your deck, knowing that encounter cards that get drawn get dealt to you. See where we're going with this? Doesn't end well, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we don't know what the final scenario is, but we do know the 4th scenario. And the 4th scenario is the entire Sinister Six. And they don't reuse Sandman or Venom or Mysterio. They've already used them, and I love it. And what we've got is a rotating cast of characters. So Dr. Octopus, 2 scheme, 2 attack, 8 hit points. And that is not 8 hit points per player. That is just 8 hit points. Activation Order 1. After Dr. Octopus attacks and damages, you place a threat on the main scheme. Move the active counter to the next villain in the activation order. When defeated, you remove 4 threat from a side scheme, 7 threat instead if no other villain in play, and set the villain aside. Electro has 2 scheme, 1 attack, 8 hit points. Again, these are overall not per player. After Electro attacks and damages you, discard the top 7 cards of your deck. Move the activation counter to the next villain. And when defeated, remove 4 threat from a side scheme, 7 if it's the only one in play. Hobgoblin's got 2 scheme, 1 attack, and 9 hit points. After Hobgoblin attacks and damages you, take 2 indirect damage, has to be its Hobgoblin. Move the activation order to the next villain. When defeated, remove 4 threat from a side scheme, 7 if it's the only one in play. Craven, 1 scheme, 2 attack, 9 hit points. After Craven attacks and damages you, choose and discard 1 support or upgrade you control. Move the activation counter to the next villain. When defeated, remove 4 threat from a side scheme, 7 if it's the only one in play. Scorpion, 0 scheme, 3 attack. Mac ain't that clever. After Scorpion attacks and damages you, stun a character you control. Move the activation counter. And when defeated, remove 4 threat from a side scheme, 7 if no other villain is in play. And finally, Vulture, 1 scheme, 2 attack. After Vulture attacks and damages you, choose and discard 1 card from your hand. Move the activation counter with the same defeated skill. So what's going on here? This seems weird. Why are we fighting them all in an order? Why do they have such low hit points? Well, okay. See, here's the thing. You don't actually win by defeating them. The main scheme is Sinister Synchronization. 8 scheme per player to lose, or 8 threat, plus 1 per turn per player, 2 per player at the start. And it's got a special skill. Choose a set-aside villain at random, put that villain into play, and place the active counter on it. And a forced interrupt. When a villain would activate, if no villain is in play, resolve the ambush ability and continue that activation. I.e., if you've taken out all of the villains, you need to have a villain in play, so it comes out randomly. Okay, fair enough. So how do you win? Well, it's all to do with a side scheme light at the end. It's permanent, it's got hinder 10, and the players cannot win unless they escape. Essentially, when the last threat is removed from this side scheme, and bearing in mind when you defeat villains you get to remove threat from side schemes, which is awesome, resolve the ambush ability on the main scheme to get one into play, and then flip this card, which will then allow you to escape. Although they've not shown us the other side, which is a bit sad. They have shown us a couple of other quick cards, so very quickly, we've got Heightened Morale. You attach it to the villain with the highest activation order value if you cannot resolve the ambush ability on the main scheme. And then you get plus X attack, X being equal to the number of villains in play. I.e., if everything's going wrong, that's plus 6 attack. Take 1 for the team, you attach to the villain with the highest attack. Otherwise, you resolve the ambush ability and put it on that villain. And you cannot attack villains who do not have an attached copy of Take 1 for the team, forcing you to go after the big dude. Frequent Flyers. When revealed, put the set-aside Hobgoblin and Vulture into play. If Hobgoblin is already in play, take 2 indirect damage. If Vulture is already in play, discard 1 card at random from your hand. It's like a team-up card for villains! And we got one more example here, Robotic Enhancements. When revealed, you put Dr. Octopus and Scorpion into play. If Doc Ock was already in play, you confuse a character you control. If Scorpion was already in play, you stun a character you control. Now, they've not told us who the final villain is. We'll have to wait. But they did give a hint. What happens when you combine the abilities of 2 quintessential Spider-Man villains? I am going to, as a bit of a change, not give you my prediction. I want to hear your prediction in the comment section, and I don't want to lead you in a particular direction. So there we go. I told you there was a lot to talk about. This is longer than a usual reveal video. 53 new cards in total. When I told you in the thumbnail and the title this was a huge reveal, I meant it, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my word, there's a lot to get to. But now you've seen 4 of the 5 scenarios. You've seen the 2 heroes. And I mean, I said when this was first revealed, and this has only heightened that opinion. I love the Marvel Champions living card game. I've been playing it obsessively since it came out. I have never been this excited for an expansion as I am for this one. It looks amazing. But I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about a whole bunch of card games, very much including Marvel Champions. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wasi Plays.